Next up here, where is Cake stock headed? And then we'll talk AMD and when does AMD stock price slow, okay? So Cake, let me be very crystal clear. It's one of the best risk rewards I found in the stock market the last couple of years. You know, we're now sitting on almost $70,000 of gains in the stock in the public count. And, you know, it doesn't even include all the dividends received. Remember, the stock pays me dividends in all my portfolios every 3 months. So this is one of the best risk reward profiles I can find in the market, right? Now, in regards to where the stock is headed, the more, you know, as far as Cheesecake's earnings, they come out Tuesday, July 29th after the close of the market, right? Which is what, 9 days from now or so? 9 trading days from now, that is. The more Wall Street understands the North Italia opportunity and the Flower Child opportunity, the higher the stock is going to go. And the higher it's going to go, and the higher it's going to go. Now, it will have short-term move downs in the stock price, right? Where, you know, the stock will go down 5, 10, 15%. And then shortly after that, you'll see it at a new all-time high. And that's just what's going on here with Cake now at this point in time. The more Wall Street understands how big the Flower Child opportunity is, that it's immensely bigger than the Cheesecake Factory opportunity, right? The more they understand Flower Child's expanding everywhere, and the more they understand they got several concepts coming behind those, the more Wall Street's going to be like, oh my gosh, like this is one of the best growth restaurant concepts we can find in the stock market with stability. Because remember, a lot of the growth concepts in the restaurant industry, they don't make crap for money. And so it's scary investing in those stocks because they trade at very high valuations. And if you had talked about a bad economy, those companies' numbers could go south very, very quickly, which means the stock price for those type of stock could easily fall 60 to 90%. 60 to 90%. And, you know, a lot of folks say, I don't know if I want to go down 60 to 90% on a stock. That sounds rough, right? With Cheesecake, you get great stability because they have an ATM of business model named the Cheesecake Factory, right? And then you get the growth concepts on top. So the more Wall Street starts to get it, the higher and higher and higher the stock will be. And next thing you know, we'll be talking about a $75 stock, and then we'll be talking about a $100 stock the more they get this. And the other thing you got to understand, even though Cheesecake's gone, you know, been a great stock, listen, the stock still trades cheap. You're talking about forward P well under 20, which is under a market multiple on the stock. And for a company that has great growth for the next 10 plus years, it's trading way too cheap, folks. Way too cheap. So, yeah, Cheesecake remains a great risk reward, right? Once again, in the short term, you know, who knows, maybe some numbers off and somebody doesn't like it and so the stock goes down 10%. Who knows, man? But the moral of the story is for the next many years, Cake should be on the upward move. Never mind if we talk about that Russell continues to move over the next few years much higher than it's been. If this Russell 2000 really gets kicked into gear, I think stocks like Cake will be even a bigger play. Then if we're talking about interest rates going lower, keep in mind, right? You know, if you're a restaurant chain like Cheesecake Factory, how can you fund your expansion? There's 2 ways. Well, there's a few ways, but 2 main ways, right? One is by your existing business, funding it that way. And, you know, you make $100 million in net income, you plug that right back into all new locations. That's one way. The other way is you take out debt, right? Which is very common. If interest rates go lower, people want to take on more risk in regards to thinking about stocks that are maybe interest rate sensitive. Cake comes to mind. They want to play Cake. Boom, boom, boom. Next thing you know, you're at $100 plus stock. Okay, so Cake remains a great risk reward. Is it as attractive as it was when it was $31? No, it's not. But is it still very attractive for the long term? Yeah, as long as everything has been playing out, keeps playing out, we're looking very good here. Okay, when does the AMD move start to slow? Stock's over doubled from those lows, right? A lot of us are starting to make a lot of money on this stock, right? $123,000 up now on the public account. You know, if I add this up with the AMD shares I have in my other portfolio, we're easily, you know, I would say like a $200,000 gain, if not more than $200,000, which is crazy because when I moved to Vegas when I was 25, my whole net worth was $200,000, right? And this is just one stock. It's just one stock that's still a relatively new investment, right? So where's the stock headed from here? Well, here's the deal. When the deceleration hits, I don't even say hits, when deceleration in growth rates is hinted at, that's when the stock will start to, you know, let's just call it reverse course. But you might not see deceleration in growth rates until like 27, 28. Like, we could be several years before you start to see a deceleration in growth rate. Once again, just for any like newbies that are watching this, a deceleration in growth is simply a company going from, like, let's say 45% revenue growth down to 35% revenue growth, right? They're still growing really nicely, but they decelerate the growth rate. An acceleration of growth rate is, let's say you're growing revenue 30% and then you bump it up to 33%. Your growth rate's accelerating. The next quarter you bump it up to 36%. You're accelerating growth. The next quarter you bump it up to 40%. You're accelerating your growth. And then you go from 40% to 39%. That's a deceleration of growth, okay? As simple as possible, just so if there's any noobs watching this, you know what a deceleration growth versus an acceleration. It's very important you understand this, to understand like why stocks move up so much, so violently, and move down so much, okay? Now, here's the deal. You might get a deceleration of growth in this current quarter they're going to report because of the whole China stuff and because, the MI 350 series, that's really going to be in this next quarter. So you might get a decel in this current quarter, but then after that, you probably won't see another deceleration of growth rate until, I would say, either 2027 or 2028. Which means this stock has a long runway of upward move to make here. So that's why for this stock to take out 200 really rapidly here and then go 250 and then we start talking about 300, it's not crazy at all. It's not crazy at all, man. And then you could have a pull down on the stock after that, and then you head up to $400 or $500 if Lisa Su and the team keeps putting up the numbers that I think they can put up, which I think things are looking really good for them with the China business coming back online. With the way they've positioned AMD to, I think, really capture, I think, a lot of customer money over this next few years, coming in with such insanely high quality chips that they're going to be coming in here with the price points they're going to be coming in at. Yeah, I feel very, very good about AMD. So, after this quarter, they're going to be reporting. By the way, and it's possible they don't even decel in this quarter. But I think there's a decent probability they'll decel in this quarter, and then the guide will be for a much higher acceleration of growth, and that's all that's going to matter. And then next thing you know, we're going to be talking about AMD's 175. We're going to be talking about AMD's 200 after that, right? And so, yeah, like this stock will continue to run until we start to get hints that the growth rates start to decelerate. When that happens, then the stock will start to reverse course. But once again, you're probably looking 2027 or 2028 before you start to hear deceleration, because the MI 350 series is going to bump up the numbers as far as acceleration in a huge extent at the end of this year and then going into next year. Then we have MI 400 hit. You ain't seen nothing yet. When the MI 400 series hits and those numbers start to hit, big money, okay? So, here's my deal with AMD. If you look at all my portfolios, add them up, we should be $1 million plus AMD position next month. Am I interested in selling? No, not for a while, man. This party's still early, okay?
Hey, it's Jeremy. I hope you really enjoyed that clip here today. Listen, there are three main areas a long-term investor has to understand. You have to understand financial statements, income statements, balance sheets, cash flows. You have to understand and master portfolio management. And you have to have the ability to project what is possible for companies in the coming years. Bearish scenarios, bullish scenarios. All these skills can be learned, and that's the good news. And I'm still just a regular guy who's out here. I just have a lot of passion for the market. I've learned a lot over the last 15 years. I had a tremendous amount of success, and I have a dedication to teaching people everything I have learned in the past 15 years. If I can do it, you can do it too. You can learn all that's required to become a great investor in my private group. The application is going to be down there in the description area. You can click on that, fill out an application, join us in the private group, get access to all my best course curriculums, teaching you everything that I got in my head, and you get ability to join our six-figure, seven-figure Hall of Fame. We have such a tremendous Discord. It is incredible. So once again, description area down there, there's a link. You can apply to join my private group in there.
More broadly, can you just comment on NVIDIA, what that means maybe for tech companies writ large?
Yeah, I think this is back to the issue we've been dealing with is like what's going to be sanctioned, what's not going to be sanctioned. I mean, the 232, like what's going to be carved out. So this is a step in the right direction for semiconductor companies broadly, I would say. And let's not forget that they took a large write-down for those same chips.
$5.5 billion
correct.
Just a few months ago.
And now apparently they can sell them. So that's going to be a huge positive kick to margins, going forward. And look, one of our big themes this year as we came in was that AI CapEx was going to slow, decelerate, and then all of that troughed in April. And I think that explains a lot of the sell-off in the first quarter and a lot of the recovery. It doesn't get a lot of attention, though. People are focused on tariffs, they're focused on other things that are going on. But the AI CapEx cycle has been very important for the overall market direction, first down in the first quarter and then the recovery in the second quarter. And this deal or announcement, I think, is just more fuel to that fire.
What do you think overall? I know that you believe the One Big Beautiful Bill was very positive to have that passed. And I think you are writing off a lot of the worst headlines for tariffs at this point, too.
Well, that's right. I mean, I think we had a lot of bad news in the first quarter. Once again, there were many headwinds to growth. Some of those were policy driven, some of those were not policy driven, and they all seemed to sort of bottom in the April period. So the market has moved on from tariffs as the worst is behind us. It doesn't mean that we don't still have bad news or issues in front of us, but it's moving beyond that. And the Big Beautiful Bill did sort of wrap up a lot of the things that are now going to lead to positive things for earnings growth, both in the second half of this year and into next year. So as we said at the beginning of the year, President Trump came in, he's like a new CEO. They kitchen sink things, right? They did all the growth negative things first. And I think the Big Beautiful Bill is part of that positive transition now to really earnings growth more so than economic growth. And I think the market understands this. This is why people are very confused about why is the market up? Why is the market up? Well, earnings revision breadth has turned straight up. And we've been talking about this for 3 months. And the Big Beautiful Bill only supports that view further.
Earnings, we're just starting to hear the first of the banks reporting now. I think earnings growth of 3 or 4% is anticipated overall. You think it's going to be better than that or not?
Yeah, I mean, these companies manage these earnings. So I'm very confident they'll beat by 4 or 5% as typical. And here's the key for earnings. I think the first 2 quarters, we didn't see the impact of tariffs because companies sort of pre-bought a lot of goods.
The most important 2 stocks, I would say, that are reporting this week overall are TSMC and American Express. Obviously, Netflix is probably the biggest market cap outside of JP Morgan. I think Netflix is the biggest market cap. So that one definitely matters. But TSMC, obviously, here, anytime TSMC has anything to say, because we're in this big kind of like multi-year boom cycle for AI chips, people are paying attention to TSMC, and also because people are trying to figure out, have we bottomed in regards to electronic sales and other electronic chips in general, right? And then American Express is extremely important. And the reason they're very important is because they're going to give you a great gauge on, how the economy is doing from kind of the perspective of a lot of the, let's call it top like 30% of income earners. Because I think American Express really caters to like the top 30% of income earners out there, right? And are those folks spending? Are they not spending? How are they feeling, right? So very important.
And so we're not seeing
not as important as Visa, though, which I think Visa's reporting the following week. Visa's always more important than American Express because Visa's basically everybody uses Visa.
Flow through to the cost of goods sold. If there's going to be an earnings risk story, it's probably in the third quarter, but it's back end load. Financials don't have impact from tariffs, right? It's going to be in the consumer goods space. And those companies tend to report in the back half of the earnings season. So I think August is going to be the period where we could have some sort of corrective activity around the earnings, but that's a pause. Because my view is that earnings are going to reaccelerate in the fourth quarter and into 2026.
Mike, President Trump is... he does things that are unexpected. Some people think that's a benefit with our enemies not knowing what the heck he might do at any time. But one thing that seems consistent is if Jensen Huang goes to him and says, look, NVIDIA is going to be severely hurt if we can't do that. Or if Tim Cook goes to him and says, look, if we can't build our iPhones right now in the United States without them costing... He seems... to be, you can talk to him, and if it's about business and about companies succeeding, even with tariffs, I think if the big 3 come and say, look, you're doing this, you got to carve this out for us if we're getting seats from Canada. He seems to err on the side of trying to help businesses. Can we count on that? That would be nice if we could count on that.
Well, I think we've learned that over 2 terms now, right? I mean, then the market is onto this idea that, it's a negotiating strategy to go way over here. And then there'll be carve-outs, right? And things like rare earth metals, right? It's another one. And the magnets. I mean, that's another one where they're making concessions.
No one really wanted to deprive everyone.
Well, so then the question is, from when it comes to tariffs, what do you think we ultimately get or not?
Less.
And by the way, though, if we all know this, don't our trading partners know this too?
And then they don't negotiate.
They do, but
don't they look and go, this, right?
Yeah, but that's why I think the market is saying we're going to settle somewhere in the middle. So my view personally has been for a while that this is going to end up looking like a 10% consumption tax, sort of like a VAT. And the idea there is that it'll be shared between exporters, importers, and consumers kind of equally. We can live with that. And that's what I think the market has settled on. Could I be wrong about that conclusion? Sure. Could there be situations where it's a little bit worse, perhaps maybe with Vietnam or some of these other countries, maybe even China? But at the end of the day, if we can collect 10% tax on all imports, that's $400 billion a year. I mean, that's real revenue, right? I think that's the goal here is it's a revenue generator. Okay, we can live with this. It's a shared tax across those three constituents, and businesses will figure it out. And I think that's why the market it's not complacent. It's just that's where it's settling.
Interesting. All right, the professor.
Pennsylvania's Wharton School of Business and chief economist at Wisdom Tree. Wisdom. You got a lot of wisdom. We both remember the Dow under 1,000, I think.
Right.
Jeremy.
Yeah. Well,
you've always been genetically predisposed to liking the market. You've also been genetically predisposed to not liking tariffs. And I think that's gotten you to where this has been very surprising for you, that we're breaking out to new highs. Is it because of all the tacos, the respites that the tariffs hasn't gone in? Has it been that maybe tariffs done in a certain way can actually be a good thing, or does it mean we're going to see today or at some point in the future that tariffs are hurting the economy? Which is it?
Well, the main thing is that we're not seeing the so-called reciprocal tariffs that we saw early in April. I mean, I think those would have been extremely damaging. I also think that at least the market doesn't think that the 30% tariffs are coming into place. I mean, I think this NVIDIA news today is showing Trump's flexibility here. Quite surprising. And I think that everyone that is coming to the table is basically going to get an extension. And I think that the market has decided it can live with a kind of a 10, 12%, maybe, and then 30% on China. I think that gives a mix of 15% tariffs. And they think they can get around it. They think the positives of the AI revolution and the positives of Trump deregulation, the extension of the tax cuts, offset that. Now, I don't think they could offset the 30% across the board tariff. I think that's quite damaging. And of course, the drama that's going on at the Fed is unprecedented. To see how that is going to play out. But as I said before, necessity is the mother of invention. Firms are going to face higher prices, and they're going to say, "I'm going to have to figure out how to get around it." And AI is one of the answers, and I think that's why AI is still on the march. And that trend is certainly intact. Clearly, the news with NVIDIA, is, as you said, spurring the NASDAQ to new all-time highs.
Right.
I think the NVIDIA news is a big signal from kind of Trump and the administration that I think they need to do. Here's the deal, okay? Think about this a little deeper. Obviously, the tariffs, everything like that, it can come across as very anti-business, right? Like Trump's like anti-business, like he's hurting us, all these tariffs, things like that, right? So how you can kind of offset that a little bit to kind of throw businesses a bone and say, you know what, see, we're flexible. The most high-profile company in the world is NVIDIA. It's the most valuable company in the world, right? So if you all sudden hear about NVIDIA is allowed to sell these chips and AMD, and now it looks like that the administration's more like, willing to play ball, right? And not so like, what it could come across as like anti-business there. So I think it's kind of like a smart play.
Anybody at Penn
from many angles
obviously loves Benjamin Franklin, and you just went over about, I don't know, I'll try to add up the goods and the bads that you just said, and I think the goods outweigh the bad, but you've got a list. You got a laundry list of things on both sides of the ledger, which makes it very interesting. So you like certain things about the, what are we calling it, the OBBB, the bill that just, you like the extension of tax?
No, and the thing is with the bill is like there's some areas where you're going to get tax cuts, right? As an individual in certain ways. There's certain ways you might get tax increases through things like tariffs, right? Because it's going to be businesses are going to get hit by that for a certain extent. The consumer, so these things can kind of offset each other.
Hey, it's Jeremy. I hope you really enjoyed that clip here today. Listen, there are three main areas a long-term investor has to understand. You have to understand financial statements, income statements, balance sheets, cash flows. You have to understand and master portfolio management. And you have to have the ability to project what is possible for companies in the coming years. Bearish scenarios, bullish scenarios. All these skills can be learned, and that's the good news. And I'm still just a regular guy who's out here. I just have a lot of passion for the market. I've learned a lot over the last 15 years. I had a tremendous amount of success, and I have a dedication to teaching people everything I have learned in the past 15 years. If I can do it, you can do it too. You can learn all that's required to become a great investor in my private group. The application is going to be down there in the description area. You can click on that, fill out an application, join us in the private group, get access to all my best course curriculums, teaching you everything that I got in my head, and you get ability to join our 6-figure, 7-figure Hall of Fame. We have such a tremendous Discord. It is incredible. So once again, description area down there, there's a link. You can apply to join my private group in there.
Now, what do you focus on in a market like this to make money? Okay, and then we'll get into honest elf Adobe stocks like that. Okay, listen very close. There's some of you guys out there that have been buying stocks over this past year, right? Maybe even over the past 2 years. You got in the market, you kind of got lucky, you threw some money around, right? And you weren't doing all the things you got to do to be sustainably, let's call it, a great investor over the long term. When I think about somebody that's putting in the work to be a great long-term investor, it's somebody that's listening to conference calls. They're looking at income statements, balance sheets for the companies. If you have stocks, you need to audit your portfolio right now. Look at your portfolio. Maybe you hold 7 stocks. Have you looked at the income statement of all 7 stocks? Have you looked at the balance sheet of all 7 stocks? Have you run 4 and 5 year projections on those stocks? Have you listened to conference calls of those stocks? If you have not, you should be ashamed of yourself. You're not playing this game right, and you will get obliterated in the next bear market. When I say obliterated, I'm talking about you won't be able to come back from it. You will be done. Great investors make it through the bear markets, out to the other side. You can get through a 2022, a 2020, a great financial crisis. That's what great investors do. You do enough research work that gets you through those tough ones. When you go through a market that's tough for maybe a few months, a few quarters, or maybe in a few years. Great investors were able to get through the tech bubble popping, all that stuff. You don't put in the work, you will not make it through. You will get pounded and you will leave the market. And that's what will happen. And so, if, when it comes to like projections, running projections on stock, use 1000xstock.com for that. If you don't use 1000x, set up your own projections, set up your own Excel sheets and revenue growth projections and all that. Like you could do that. It might take you a few hours to set it up, but you can do that. But you run your projections on your stocks. If you don't run projections on a stock, what's a fair PE for a stock? What's fair revenue growth, net income growth, right? What's a company's earnings per share? You don't do that, you're lost in this game. You don't even, that's like flying, that's like being a pilot and flying with no computer system and your window's all blacked out and filled with fog so you can't see anything. That's like flying an airplane like that. Literally, like that's the equivalent in the stock market of not running projections on your stocks. You have to run your projections. That's what at least gives you an idea on if the risk reward is attractive or not. You don't do that. Like, what are you doing in this game? No, you might say, I can look at an income statement. I can look at a balance sheet for my stock, but I don't know what the freak is going on. Like, I don't know like how to run a projection on a stock. That's okay. I have the private group to help you and explain all that for you. I got all the course curriculums that can teach you all this stuff. Take you up to a much higher level, get you out of gambling phase into like being a pilot that actually has his instruments and actually can like see out the window instead of like a guy that's just flying blind out there. I teach it all to you. You could be part of our Discord chat with the high level discussions and all that stuff. You can get access to 1000xstocks.com. I got it all for you, man. I got it all for you. Just today inside the private group, I did a 20+ minute video just on investigating balance sheets and looking at different balance sheets in different industries and explaining what makes this balance sheet good, what makes this balance sheet bad, taking people very in depth with the different line items and explaining all that. That's what you got to do to become a great investor, okay? That's what you got to do. So anyways, pin comment down there. You can click on that, fill out a form, get you in the private group, get you up to a much higher level than where you're at, so you stop flying blind in this game, because you will end up crashing your plane. I'll just put it like that, okay?